Hello, and welcome to episode 2 of Unsung Heroes of the Cloud with Mike Martin and Nils Franzens. And today we're going to be talking about static web apps on storage. And I'll hand it over to you, Mike and Nils.
Whoa, that was cut it out, man. sound broke. Hey, Nils, how you doing? How's the West Coast life?
I'm doing well, Mike. I know last time we spoke, we were chatting about the COVID vaccine, and I got my first shot on Monday.
Cool. So you're going to be way ahead of the curve and way ahead of everybody here in Europe. Keep it up that way.
I guess so, but it's a good feeling to be at the end of this pandemic.
At least they're seeing a light at the end of the tunnel, which is great.
Exactly.
Good to hear, buddy. Good to hear. I don't know what. Okay, I recovered in the meanwhile from COVID, so just a little bit tired at the end. Yeah, nothing too serious. I mean, I was sick, but there's people that had worse, so all good here. So yeah, but enough about on the diseases and on the sickness. Let's talk shop today, shall we?
Yes, and I believe you have another unsung hero for us today. Mike, what do you have prepared for us?
Well, the unsung hero of the day is static websites on storage. Because everybody is talking about static web pages, and we are going back to that. There's a big love coming up again for static websites. Why? Because they're basically very simple to maintain, and they run on client side, and so there's a lot of to be said for. And we do have a great service in app services for running static apps. But if you run it really cheap, really fast, the best way is actually to run it in storage. I mean, I shouldn't be saying that, but it's a thing, and people underestimate the power of that service, which is a subservice of the storage accounts. And I believe that is.
If I may, Mike, what's the big difference between static web pages on storage versus static web pages on an app service?
Well, of course, you have less of all the features like you have in app service, right? So you don't have all the metrics there from app services. You don't have the underlying IIS. You just have a storage layer that you can access. But the beauty of it all is that storage nicely integrates with other services like Front Door and like CDN. So you really get a good how should I put it? A good distribution channel, a good way of doing global distribution of your website. And Nils, are you still there? Nils? I think we lost Nils. So we will be back in a second. In the meanwhile, maybe I should get started and show a little bit how you set these things up. So I'm gonna show you a couple of things. Maybe I start off with just by showing what you need to get started. So first of all, you need to have a storage account. A storage account, as you all know, has basically a couple of features. First of all, there's blob storage. Second of all, there's stable storage, and there's queues, and there's of course Azure files, right? And they all are part of the Azure storage accounts. Now, the thing is, the landing of the static websites is basically an extension on top of the blobs that you're going to deploy into. So for doing this, and if you just want to activate a storage account, you create your resource group, you create your storage account, and then for going inside of the storage account and enabling the static websites, because it's a feature that you need to enable, you just scroll down inside of the portal to your storage account, and you go all the way down to where is it? I think I just overlooked it. Here we are, static websites. So if you enable this, you can actually just set up enabled. You get a primary endpoint, and for those who are paying really well attention, you can see here that actually the endpoint that you have is just like any other part in storage accounts. So you have core.windows.net, which is the domain that the DNS suffix that you have, and we added web.core in front of it. And then of course you have your storage account name, which is being used in Azure landing zone. And you can use this in combination with CDN and a custom domain name if you want to. He's back. You dropped a line, man.
Yes, my PC just shut down for updates. I am glad that it was a quick update. I am so sorry.
That's okay. I was explaining. I said, this is weird. He's not responding to me anymore. So I already started. Like I just continued. Like the demo gods, we have to favor them, right? So what part did you miss of the configuration part?
I basically missed you doing the setup of the web page, but let's say you don't have to repeat it for me, but just I heard you mention CDN there, and that is a question I have. How can you integrate this with CDN and potentially with Front Door?
Well, potentially you just use it as a backend, and Front Door can handle the CDN part for you. There's a very nice example application written by Burke Holland and Cecil Phillip called the URL list. And this actually gives you a full explanation on how to create these things. So you have your front-end host, which you define by using Front Door, and you put up a custom DNS name in front of it. And then you have a backend pool that you can use. And the beauty, of course, with static pages is that you have no, how should I put it? No workers inside of your environment. It's all local running. So you can use functions for all your backend code that you can use, and for all your functionalities that you want to attach to. Yeah? So that makes it easy. But Front Door actually will help you here by setting this up. So you can just use these and pointing them to the routing rules and setting up the backend and the front end pools inside of your Front Door, and that's basically it. So it's really, really simple to do so. The CDN part will actually do the distribution of your website globally. So immediately you have a globally distributed website, which will be very, very fast, because first of all, storage is fluently fast when you access it. It's also a very unsung hero, because for me, storage is one of the most underestimated services that we have. Because if you do storage design in a very bad way, your entire application will actually perish and will actually be punished because of that. There's a couple of colleagues that you can talk to about who will totally prove me right. Of course, they work in the product group for storage, but it always has been like this. Storage, if you didn't do storage design well, you couldn't run cloud services in a decent way. You couldn't run VMs in a decent way. So there was always something which has to do with it. And since we are working on a full backend there, which is supported by very high throughput storage devices and all these things, you really have a good solid base to run your applications from and to distribute it all over the world. So hence why I'm such a big fan.
And like you mentioned distributing this around the world. If I host my static website on Azure Storage and I want this to be distributed around the world, do I then need to copy that website to different storage accounts in different regions, or do you think about that differently?
I think about the CDN part then, most basically, because that will do the distribution for you. So the setting up is, as I started explaining inside the portal, is, as you can see, very simple. But of course, you still need to deploy your website then, right? So there's a couple of things that you could do. You could just say, I'm going to use Storage Explorer and just upload my stuff through Storage Explorer, because what it does is...
Sorry to interrupt you there, but what is Storage Explorer?
Aha, Storage Explorer. One of the free tools that we have. There's actually two versions of it. There's the Fat Client Electron app that we have. Fat Client that you can install on your PC, works on all platforms. Or you could have, and that's also a very nice thing, even in the portal today, we have a Storage Explorer enabled. So you can actually use it from the portal too.
That's nice.
You can, yeah. It's still in preview. I prefer the Storage Explorer on my PC, but whatever rocks your boat. I mean, whatever floats your boat. That's the expression. Probably.
Yeah.
You get the idea.
You were explaining different ways to deploy this Storage Explorer, and what are the other options?
Yeah. So of course you can just go through Storage Explorer, and if you enable static websites on your storage account, what it does, it extends your blob containers with a folder called $web. And this folder will actually be the hosting root for your static website. So this is where you need to upload your site, and it will then be enabled by default. Now, of course, it's fun to have just storage container copy paste, and you can just upload it. That's one way of looking at it. Another way of doing it, through one of my favorite tools, is actually using the Azure extension in VS Code and use it from there. Because if you have any kind of website that you want to host, and I just have a very dumb HTML file here. Why? Because I don't want to compile. I don't want to run Node for 12 hours to compile my code. But what you could do here, which is just basic dumb website, is I can just right-click inside of the folder environment. It gives me my menu item, and look what you have here at the bottom. Deploy to static websites through Azure Storage. It can immediately do it through there. Of course, it will also work if you do Control-Shift-P, you do static. You will actually get also the static web apps, but also in the storage part, here you go, configure static website and deploy to static website. Now, another way of doing it is I have this already prepared on one storage account, and I can just redeploy it. So I can go into the Azure tool part, and I go to my storage account, and I can do from here out, I can immediately say deploy my static website via Azure Storage. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to do the entire process, but from a clean one. So that one hasn't enabled, because it actually just shows you an additional set of features. So I just do here, deploy to static website via Azure Storage. It will ask me a couple of questions. So I'm going to use the latest recently used folder. I can just do the browsing part too, but I'm going to use this folder where I'm right now. I need to then enable the features. So the tooling knows. I need to give the main page. So in this case, I named it index.html, but that can be any page that you want to land on. So typically you have some of the default pages that you have. It could also be default HTML, whatever you want to name it. And then comes a more important part, because you need also to give a document part where all the errors are being located. So 404, 500, if you want to do customized error pages, you need to set that. So this one is going into the, and I thought it was errors or errors. I cannot remember for the love of God now, and now I need to cheat. Let me quickly see. It's errors. All right, I did it correctly. So I just press enter then. And there you have it. And now it's configuring it, enabling it, and now it's going to deploy it. Basically, it's just a storage copy.
So if I understand you correctly, you do not even need to go to the Azure portal to enable any of this. Once you have a storage account and a blob container, you can just do everything through VS Code. Exactly.
And it immediately will generate you the DNS name for Azure, so web.core.windows.net with the prefix and then an additional prefix here. So the prefix is just like any other storage naming convention, your account name, and then you have the DNS suffix, whether it's blob, files, tables, you know these things, right? And you just can go from here. So if I now go to browse website, and if all goes well, it should end up on the correct screen. And if not, I just need to open it. Come on. Come on, where are you? Where are you? There it is. It's loading. Sometimes website deployed, as you can see. Oh, hey, I know this book, Mike. And I know this guy. Shameless plug, man. Shameless plug. Yeah.
I'll tell you, the third edition should be coming out in a couple of weeks. So if people are watching this, maybe hold off just a couple of weeks before you get this, because there's a new edition coming.
Oh, pretty cool, pretty cool. But as you can see, it's just a URL that you can use, and it's clickable. So I can just use every link. I can take a look at whatever I have. I even can, if I do this, I can actually go to the error page, because I create 404 just to show you. Normally the error will be, as you can see, is just a quick H1 that I set up, but you need to do the routing and all these things correctly, of course, but it's just for doing quick demo. So it just works out from the storage layer immediately.
Okay. And Mike, can I stop you there? And a great person once said, friends don't let friends right-click deploy.
I knew you were going to say that. Now, the easiest part of the entire thing with static on storage is that it is just an AZ copy command, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, today, luckily enough, there's a lot of features already available of doing some stuff, and I prepared a little bit, but it failed in deploying. But it's my fault, so I need to fix it. But I'm not going to do that now because we're going to waste a lot of time. But if you go to GitHub Actions, for instance, you can just use the here we are. I prepared a small folder here. What you could do is there are a couple of actions that you can already use where you can add, for instance, and I'm going to see if I can do this. There we go.
Can you zoom in a little, Mike?
Yeah, I'm going to zoom in a little. Give me a second. Give me a second. And maybe I should put it on white, or is the black the black is readable. So yeah. If you take a look here, there's a couple of actions that you can do. There's Tibor19 who said a static website deploy. The only thing that you need is set a connection string, but of course you should keep this a secret. So as I was setting this thing up, but there are some actions that you can already use. Not this one, because this will deploy to Azure Web Apps, not to the static storage. But there are some static like this one. There's also storage static sites that you can use. That's the end. This one, for instance, and they're all well documented. You just need to pick your poison, as they say. And they all do a little bit the same. What they do is they just create the settings that you have here in the portal. So the settings for the static site, they set them up inside of the properties, and they just use them. That's basically it, what they do. So most of them just do a little bit the same. As you can see here, this one uses the client ID, the tenant ID, the secret that you're going to use, and the storage account name. The Tibor one just uses a connection string that you can use. So there's a couple of things that you can do there. And even in Azure DevOps, if you're still using Azure DevOps, there's even a task there too, an official one that you can use. So you get a choice there. So of course it's a no-do to right-click deploy, but at least I showed you the way things are working behind the scenes. So you need to enable something, you need to set up an error folder, and you need to set up a default page, and everything else just follows along. And then for everything else, like images and all these things, you just create containers or folders in there and add to it and just do the pathing correctly, and you're done. Because that's basically it, and don't make it too heavy, of course. That's the stuff.
Okay, so that seems like a really, let's say, cost-efficient and cheap way to host a static website.
Yeah, I mean, you can run a static website with just Front Door in front of it for less than a coffee per month. I mean, that's what our dear friend, I think even Troy Hunt does it now with static sites on storage, if I'm not mistaken. Or did he switch to
He's on
App Services?
Ghost. I think, have you been Pwned is on App Services, and his blog is on Ghost, I believe. But
yeah,
doesn't matter what he
I've been Pwned was static. It was static on storage, or at least he tried, because he blogged about it. That's what I remember. So yeah, there's that. But it's an unsung hero, yes. And for those who are watching this show, the unsung heroes, it's not Nils and me. It's the services that we're talking about. We're not going to brag about ourselves. So yeah, so this is the unsung hero for the week.
Okay, thanks, Mike, and thanks everybody for watching. Catch you again next time.
I hope everybody enjoyed the show, and we'll see each other again in 2 weeks, and we keep it a secret what the next one will be. Okay, see you then.
Thanks, Mike.